Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 107 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that there is still time to get in on the July rewards on the Patreon page. If you haven't yet, go and check that out now. You can go to patreon.com/Jeremy Paris. You'll be able to see the rewards there and get in on the fun. On today's episode, we have Andrew Marr from Warrior Angels Foundation. Andrew Marr is the Special Forces Green Beret, co-founder and CEO of Warrior Angels Foundation, is on the leadership team of Warrior Soul, and co-hosts the Warrior Soul podcast with Chris Albert. Andrew is married to Becky, the love of his life, and together they have 5 children. The Warrior Angel symbolizes a brave and experienced fighter of exemplary virtue. We do the right thing, not for promise of reward or fear of punishment, but simply because it's the right thing to do. This is the way of the Warrior Angel. Warrior Angels Foundation provides a personalized assessment and treatment protocol which pinpoints and, more importantly, treats the underlying condition for U.S. military service members and veterans who have sustained a traumatic brain injury while in the line of duty. This is one of those important episodes that I definitely want you to listen to all the way through and share it with everybody that you can. This can definitely help somebody. And with that, let's jump right into the interview. Andrew, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How you doing today?
Doing amazing. Thanks for having me on, Jeremy. It's an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this interview for sure. So let's start off with kind of just give me a brief description of what is the Warrior Angels Foundation.
Here's the mission: to identify and treat the underlying condition for traumatic brain injury, and then to bring that to service members and veterans who've incurred a head injury in the line of duty. So, I mean, that is what we do. We partnered up with the leading neuroendocrinologist in the country, recognized as one of the tops in the world. And he's the medical director, and we're able to bring this level of healing to the veteran wherever they're at. And so, that in a nutshell is what we aim to do. And what we found is what the current model does is the opposite of that. It just masks symptoms with medication and psychotherapy, and we know 16 years after 2001 where that's gotten us. So it's time for a change, a paradigm shift, and that's what we're helping to usher in.
Excellent. Andrew, I can't wait to dive into that. But first, I want to get a little bit about your background. I think there's a lot here with your background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, was an athlete. High school football was a point of emphasis growing up in Texas. From there, I went on to on scholarship, was a college football player, and after graduating, then decided to enlist in the Army. Much to my parents' chagrin, my younger brother of 2 years, had just graduated ROTC from a school in Texas called TCU, Texas Christian University. So they were both kind of pushing hard for me to go the ROTC route. But I had done my homework and knew I wanted to go into the special operations field. Looked specifically into the Green Berets a little more, and it just kind of lined up with my personality type and what I thought I would enjoy doing. So I didn't want to go the officer route for that very reason, because I know I wanted to just stay on the team and be an operational team guy, so to speak. So that's the reason for enlisting. I went in on what they call an 18 X-ray contract. So I was a little bit older than the majority of people that went in the early to mid 20s there. But yeah, I signed up under the X-ray contract, which means after basic and AIT, you go to airborne school, and then you go to PCS to Fort Bragg, and you go through a preparatory course for what they call SFAS, that's Special Forces Assessment and Selection. Went to SFAS, was selected to go into the Special Forces qualification course, what they call the Q course, and that's just our training pipeline. My MOS to be was a 18 Charlie, which is a Special Forces engineer, which is a jack of all trades, but downrange, our major one of the major jobs that we do is with demolitions, explosives, and on the team specifically on that was our master breacher, getting into denied points of entry. So it's kind of the military background, how I got into Special Forces.
And what about coming out? What was transitioning out of the military like?
Transitioning out was not there was no transition period. So I was medically retired in June of 2015, so almost 2 years ago now from the time of this podcast. Our last deployment was in 2013, and I think I got home September, October timeframe of 2013. On that deployment, I was knocked unconscious, but just briefly. But it was a particularly violent, physically and emotionally taxing deployment. I had missed the birth of a son, and a few other things had gone on while I was deployed, and so came back home and was excited to be there, and not having any physical or mental or psychological problems. So until that point, I had been an elite performer, capable of making life and death decisions in life and death situations. And I started about 4 to 6 months in from coming back from that last deployment, started to have some new issues that had they were never been there before, Jeremy. So what started was a complete, loss of libido, and for somebody in their early 30s, that was atypical. And from there, I just became extremely fatigued all the time. And then just a number of other issues happened from there. Started having problems with cognition. I couldn't remember simple vocabulary words when speaking. Driving home the same route that I drove every day from work, and I would look up and I would have no idea where I was, no frame of reference how I got in the vehicle, and that started to happen on a regular basis. Started taking the children out to an event and then coming back and having no recollection of that event or what had happened, and from there some more physical issues. Started having migraine headaches, and that would cause blurry vision, which would go into double vision, and then started having panic attacks and anxiety attacks in public. And again, totally new, never had any of these problems. Started having bouts of depression. And again, I was doing what I thought was, or what at that time was my purpose. I was living a very purpose-led life, doing the job I wanted. I was going to work with my best friends every day, very fulfilled in the work we were doing. I was married to the woman of my dreams. We have 5 children. I was like, I have no reason for any of these things to be happening, and I can't understand while, out of nowhere, these things just continue to happen, and can just continue to get worse and worse and worse. And irritability went into anger issues, into full-on rage issues over situations that would not warrant that type of a reaction. And so when I raised my hand and I said, listen, I've tried to sit on this for as long as I can possibly sit on it, but now I'm having problems. I can't even control myself in public, much less in private. I need help, and I don't know what's going on. And, what that got me initially was 13 medications. So going from, being on nothing, living life to its fullest, and waking up one day, finding yourself as an alcoholic on 13 medications. And then because of all the head trauma, we found, it was up for what they call a medical retirement because they couldn't operate anymore. They just said I couldn't take the risk of another trauma or blow to the head. Weren't sure what that would do. And so in a relatively short time, it went from, our life on the teams, planned out, we know what we're doing, to you're on your way out of the military. And, that was like a less than an 8-month process. Once we finally put in for what they call a P3 profile, I think that was 7 months by the time I was P3 profile to out of the Army. And that wasn't like, hey, you're fixed, you're back, you're ready to go, live life. It was like, okay, you can no longer function anymore. We'll medically retire you. Transition was pretty chaotic.
Wow. Yeah, that's something that, you don't think about a lot when the people are normally coming out of the military. You've got that time period, a year out or even longer. Okay, I'm not going to be re-enlisting. I've got about 2 years. I could start, figuring out what the plan is once I get out. But when you're medically retired, you don't have that option. You go from thinking I'm going to be in for a long time or retirement or ever to now what am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly it. And so from living that lifestyle, which was all I wanted to do at that time period, and then as I got having all the issues with the injury and all the other manifestations of that, I'd lost my sense of purpose and sense of meaning. And I've always been an optimistic person and, a can-do or glass half full type of individual. But I started just really going into a dark place where all I would focus on was I won't be able to do what I think was my purpose in life. People are mistreating me. Nobody's looking out for me. My life is upside down. This is unfair. And started becoming really turning into a victim mode type mentality. And that those negative repercussions echoed on out for a while until I came to a kind of a crossroads where I had to figure out, is this what I want to do, or do I want to change that route?
We've kind of got into the whole TBI thing, and I think that there's a lot of people now. I would say, I don't know, a year ago, there was very few people who were hearing this term TBI. Now you're hearing it a little bit more, but still not nearly enough, I don't think. Can you kind of, for the listeners, go over, what a TBI is?
A traumatic brain injury, by definition, is any alteration in brain functioning. It's commonly misunderstood or thought that you have to be knocked unconscious, in a coma, have some, protruding head wound to have a traumatic brain injury. But the majority of traumatic brain injuries are what they call minor or mild traumatic brain injury. Mild in the sense that you're not missing a limb, an eye, or anything like that, and that's about where it ends. I think the word mild is oftentimes misunderstood, and it just simply means that there was no major structural damage, like a piece of shrapnel that went into the brain. But that can, so before or after the period right after that physical, jolt to the head or the body, there could be a loss of consciousness, doesn't have to be. You could not know where you're at, so confusion, what they saw, getting your bell rung, so seeing stars, things like that all contribute to what they call traumatic brain injury. And so traumatic brain injury is, we now know, a two-phase injury. So that phase one is the physical blunt force trauma, acceleration, deacceleration of the head, falling, and environmental factors, certain toxins, certain medications, radiation, being exposed to radiation, or lots of X-rays. We know that also can lead to the alteration of brain functioning. And what that will lead to is the phase 2 of the injury. And the phase 2 is the silent part, as they call it. And that phase 2 is post-traumatic inflammation, fancy word for swelling of the brain. And so once that assault happens on the brain, see, the brain's floating in cerebral spinal fluid, and if it's rocked back and forth, it causes what's known as diffuse axonal injury. So the vessels, blood vessels, neurons, things like that are carrying our chemistry, they can become damaged where there'll be a micro tear and it leaks out that chemistry. Well, that is very toxic to the brain and to the cells. And so that those chemicals being leaked out, which are only supposed to be in the vessel, once it comes out of the vessel, that leads to what they call inflammation. And so that's why somebody can be kicked in the left side of the head and they can find inflammation on the right side of the head. That's because it goes and it's floating through the cerebral spinal fluid and the other areas, like I said, the neurons and the vessels, veins of the brain, and completely have an effect on a different side that wasn't impacted. So that's why just thinking like, hey, if I just took this assault to one portion of the head, that's not the only part that's going to be affected. And so that inflammation can happen slowly over time. And what it causes is damage to the cell and then causes the cell to die. So one by one, that can happen and start to spread out. And that can be a day, a week, a month, or on record years after the initial injury. That slow process of the insidious chemicals being leaked out, causing chronic inflammation and then damaging the cells. So again, that's why it's hard for doctors sometimes to diagnose what's going on, or for individuals to understand what's happening, like in my case, where you wake up 6 months later and you start to have a problem, but you can't correlate that to any injury in your immediate past. So it's like, okay, well, this is crazy. Where is this coming from? I don't understand it. And that inflammation, Jeremy, we also know totally disrupts the hormonal system. So hormones called neurosteroids, which are produced in the brain, and then we have neuroactive steroids, which are produced in the peripheral glands like testes, ovaries, thyroid. So those can be affected and are affected by this inflammation process, this chronic inflammation process as well. And so when those hormones, those neurosteroids, neuroactive steroids, are dysregulated, downregulated because of that inflammation, well, now your neurochemistry is off. And the neurochemistry, our chemistry is what runs our entire body. Not only does it run our body, it's responsible for cognition, emotion, behavior, capacity to love, capacity to make appropriate decisions, sequential decisions. So everything in essence that makes us who we are is controlled by that chemistry. And so through that inflammation, which then leads to the downregulation of those hormones, we have what we had in my case and hundreds of thousands of other veterans and millions of other people across the world, where they're going in and they're saying they're having these problems and they're put on psychotropic medication. They're put on pain pills. They're put on sleeping pills. And the problem, Jeremy, is none of that addresses the things that I just spoke on, or what we call the underlying condition. And that's why people don't get better, because underlying condition isn't addressed.
So this was all part of the 13 medications that you were on. They were giving you pain pills and sleeping pills and all of these other things that were helping to kind of, I guess, dull your senses so that you didn't care as much?
It was purely symptom management. So it's
Okay.
saying, okay, well, this person is depressed. Give him an antidepressant. Oh, you're still depressed. Okay, up the dosage. 4 weeks, 8 weeks later, oh, you're still depressed. Well, let's put you on another one. You have anxiety. Well, Okay, we'll put you on an anti-anxiety. Oh, you still have anxiety. Let's up the dosage. Oh, you can't sleep. Here's a sleeping pill. And
Wow.
really addressing why those things were happening. And those things, the side effects to a lot of these drugs are horrific. Many times, like the psychotropics, if you look, they have the black box label and is like, known to possibly cause an increase in suicidal ideation or suicide.
Wow.
And you look at it like, you got to be kidding me. Like, why this drug, a side effect of this could be suicide or actually depression. But that was the case. So I woke up, like I said, on 13 meds, thinking, you know what? I think I'm worse off for being on all these medications. Like I'm totally numb. I'm having all kinds of additional problems from just the medication than when we started.
Let's talk about the Warrior Angels Foundation now. How did this get started?
Well, going through that process myself, basically I went through every brain injury treatment modality that the Department of Defense had to offer, and it wasn't working. To include being at Walter Reed's NICO program, which is called the National Intrepid Center of Excellence for brain health. And so I spent a month there. And that's where they basically told me, hey, this is the new you. You're going to have to learn how to live within these new parameters because this is what life is now like for you. As I said before, I was sick. My two young boys were sick. I was at my son's hospital bed. I was popped the last pain pill, Dilaudid, that I ever took. I chased it down with airplane whiskey. Again, this is at my son's hospital bed. And I just had a moment of clarity, and I said, this is going to go one of two ways. I can continue on this track, and it's going to kill me. Or I can decide to quit blaming my circumstances and start to go out and look for ways to fix what I don't like. And so instead of giving in and saying that I don't like what's happening to my life and just complaining about it, I'm going to find a way to fix it. And I promised myself and my son that I would go out and I would find a way to heal myself, that I would return to the man of my pre-injury status. And when I did that, I would find a way to bring that level of healing to others in need as well. So finding a way to serve others who needed the same thing. That led me looking for alternative, what medicine calls alternative treatments. And I went out to do just about everyone out there, every treatment out there that was said to have provided some type of benefit, and all on my own dime with no help from the military, because they refused to cover anything like that. Well, that process led me to Dr. Mark Gordon. Like I said earlier, he was a leading neuroendocrinologist, and he actually contacted us because he'd seen us on some media programs and said, we've been treating traumatic brain injury for 13 years. I've had a lot of success with not only treating my own, but thousands of civilians. And we've been helping veterans for the last 7 or 8 years. Here's my credentials. Here's some of my media. Take a look at this. If you're interested, let me know, and we'll talk about getting you going. Well, once I finally linked up with Dr. Gordon and got on the protocol, I felt a immediate, like within 3 hours, benefit, in that the anxiety, the two double fists that were pushing through my stomach, on the inside of my stomach, trying to get out, that had been plaguing me for the last year, subsided.
Wow.
And within 3 hours, and of seeing how my body would respond to testosterone, because I was grossly deficient in it. And the body has an innate ability to heal itself, but we'll get into that. But so going through that process, meeting Dr. Gordon, getting better, and then again, like another light bulb went off through my own story, realizing that, hey, this is what has been leading to both service member and veteran suicide. And we had several guys in the group I was in Special Forces overall, more than several, that had committed suicide. And that was just baffling to us, how a Green Beret could kill himself, because we just prided ourselves on being a mentally tough and able to make difficult decisions in tough situations. And it baffled me how that person, those people, could come up and say, you know what, this is the best solution I can come up with. And it was just ignorance on my part, and ignorance on ours as a whole, to think that was weakness on their part. But it was coming to the conclusion that somebody who was performing at a high level then all of a sudden had all these new physical, mental, and social problems. And when you raise your hand and you want to get help, you're just given medication or psychotherapy that actually just makes things worse. And then most of the time, individuals are going to drink to try to numb a lot of those problems. And it's going to help maybe in the short term, but definitely it's detrimental in the long term. Well, when you start getting on that cycle as well, individuals are going to have problems with sleep. So their sleep is going to be affected in a negative way. They're probably eating a diet that is not conducive to healthy living. And all these factors contribute to what we call a non-neuropermissive environment. And so when that happens, when I was in that state, I got to a place where I saw the damage I was having on my family. And consciously, I did not want to be causing these negative effects to anybody. But without being able to control it, I felt like my family would actually be better off if I ceased to exist. And that was the frame of mind I was in. And then, like I said, the light bulb went off, and I said, this is the cycle. This is the cycle. And they asked for help, and the help we get is medication, psychotherapy, and told that this is the new you. And so when I got better and I understood the cycle that's leading to this pandemic in the community, I said, you know what? I always came from the line of thinking, if you don't like it, fix it. And so rather than complaining about it or just doing fitness exercises to raise awareness, we wanted to go out and provide a viable solution that would serve to identify and treat the underlying condition for traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress, which we're now finding is really just a symptom of physical injury. So that's how we got into the Warrior Angels Foundation, finding healing process, understanding and completely identifying the problem, and then figuring out how we could then offer our unique solution to the community to provide a answer to that problem for those that we could affect. And then to deliver this information on platforms like you afforded us opportunity today, so other people now can have this information. Because like I said, when I was going through it, there wasn't any talk about this. It was kind of hush hush, and there certainly wasn't any correlation between inflammation, hormonal dysregulation, much less that you could address these, fix them, and the person can return to a high quality of life.
Andrew, I am absolutely positive that there's listeners that are hearing this right now, and they're identifying with this, and they're saying, maybe this is me. Maybe I have a TBI. Maybe I need this help. For that listener, can you kind of walk them through what it would be like going in and talking with Warrior Angels Foundation and what the treatment looks like for them?
Yeah. First of all, you can check out our website. That's waftbi.org. Warrior Angels Foundation Traumatic Brain Injury, waftbi.org. There's a wealth of knowledge and information on that site, and it's set up specifically for you, the listener, to go in there having no background and come out of there with a sense of clarity and knowing fully what this treatment modality offers to you. With that, Dr. Gordon is in Encino, California. So one of the problems we wanted to answer was the issue, a lot of issues that you see with going to a doctor or a hospital, the VA or any medical facility is there's a lot. It can be impersonal. It has long waiting lines, and the treatment once you get in there, like I said, is sometimes less than professional or impersonal. And that's just because that's the way that system is set up. It's not because any of the individuals in there have it out for veterans, so to speak. But so we wanted to, okay, well, there's a problem. What's the solution? All right. And so through the means of what we call telehealth, we found in our laboratory systems, we found a viable solution. So we want to identify the underlying condition. It's a very easy process, and it's very objective. And it's a laboratory analysis, so a blood draw. We're going to use Dr. Gordon's come up with a blood panel to check for those things that we discussed. Inflammation, downregulation of hormones, to include a number of other health and wellness biomarkers that need to be looked at and addressed if possible. So that's step one. So when somebody comes to our website and they're cleared for treatment, or you go through Dr. Gordon or one of our approved physicians, you're going to fill out a detailed health questionnaire. And you fill out that detailed health questionnaire, you get it back to us or the physician. At that point, once you're funded, we will send a lab kit to your house. We use one of the premier laboratory facilities in the country, Access Medical Labs. And again, we have videos on them and on their technology on our website. Access Medical Labs will send the kit to you where you're at. Say you're in Chicago, they're in Florida. They'll send the blood kit from Florida to Chicago. Access Medical Labs will make coordinations with a laboratory that is close to your geographical location in Chicago, and they will get you all the information you need to know to get from wherever your home is in Chicago to that laboratory. You go to the lab, you take the lab kit there, the lab will then receive it, they'll take and draw the blood, and the lab will then send that blood back to Florida. And that's the last time you have to leave your house for this treatment modality. From there, like I said, the lab in Chicago will mail that back to Access Medical Labs in Florida. They'll run the blood, get the results, send those results to the doctor. In this case, Dr. Gordon is in Los Angeles, so they'll send him the information via the internet from Florida to LA. Dr. Gordon will then get the information. He'll write a detailed report. He'll send you that through an email on a HIPAA-compliant file. And Dr. Gordon's office will then make coordinations with you, your significant others, and family to have a one-on-one consultation over a video conference like Skype.
That's great.
Yeah, or something like that. So that process is called telehealth. And so from there, he's going to go over absolutely all of the findings, all of the objective findings. And what's totally unique about it, he's going to say, look, right here, you see how you're deficient? Where you see how you have this inflammation, this has led to this deficiencies and these hormones. And guess what these hormones regulate? And it's going to start without knowing maybe specifically your story. He's going to be telling you all probably the new problems that you have in your life and how they're exactly related to these issues that have shown up on this blood test.
Wow.
Yep. From there, you guys will go over what he recommends as a treatment protocol, and he will then put that in and send you that treatment protocol to your house. And 80 to 85% of the things that Dr. Gordon recommends is natural supplements or nutrition that does not require a prescription. So we're just able to use things that are found out in nature to combat the problem. And again, that's get rid of inflammation and restore hormones back to a physiological level, a balance. And from there, we do follow-up labs every 90 to 120 days. The patient will take a monthly questionnaire, a patient questionnaire, talking about how they're feeling. So it's like a 20 questionnaire based on pain and behavioral and cognitive and all these other questions that will give us a true understanding of how you're doing on a month-to-month basis, your subjective improvement, and then match that every quarter with the objective follow-up labs. And then from there, we can say, okay, what do we add? What do we take away? Or do we keep it the same? And that's how we are able to help dramatically improve people's quality of life. And again, Jeremy, it's what we call individualized or personalized, and it's not cookie cutter. It's based on your individual physiological needs, deficiencies or insufficiencies. So no two people, no two cases, just like no two injuries are the same, no two people are the same. And so everybody must have a personalized treatment protocol to really optimize and regain health. And so that's the process.
I love everything about that. It takes away a lot of the obstacles that I keep hearing from people that, they have to go somewhere. I don't want to go into a place and wait in line forever. And I don't feel comfortable going into clinic every week. And if you're able to do this from your home and able to take a blood test and actually see all of the things that you're deficient in, seems like this is a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer, no pun intended. And what the beautiful part of this, it is all scientifically backed up, validated 100%. It's outside the confines of conventional treatment, but it's inside the confines of the scientific literature and everything that we understand about the brain, inflammation, and the chemistry of the brain and the body. And it would only make sense to check for these things before you put somebody on 1, 2, 3, 13 medications. And again, there was nothing objective when I was put on an antidepressant at a max dosage and then added another antidepressant at a max dosage. There was nothing objective about that. That was just a doctor saying, okay, well, you have these problems. This isn't working. Let's try another one. Well, why don't we get a little bit more serious about what we're doing, a little bit more ethical, a little bit more moral, and say, why don't we take an objective look and see how this person's doing? Also with their subjective complaints and their subjective analysis. So those things, we must treat the person, we must treat the individual, and not a reference range or not a hypothesis. It needs to be backed up on numbers. And
so the expense that incurs, I guess, from treating any one person, I imagine that's quite high, yes?
Well, through the Congressional Budget Office issued a report in 2011 what the taxpayer is paying for a veteran who has traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. It's about $15,000 a year. And again, that's $15,000 for psychotherapy and medication. Year one of this protocol, and that's all of your labs, all of your physician consultations, all of your supplements, probably about $7,000. And again, that's not like a lump sum. That's over the course of a year. And it's going to be less in year two. And then if you need to remain on a protocol, even less, like to the tune of $3,000 to $1,500 by year three, if it's you still need to be on the protocol. So, those are the price ranges there, but that's why we set up the organization, because we wanted to bring that to people who didn't have the means to do it themselves. And the government is yet to institute this treatment modality as a standard of care. So we've been able to help close to 200 people now since in the last 2 years with just absolutely incredible results. We've been blessed and maybe cursed to have a lot of media attention, which has been good because that information is now getting into the public who so desperately needs to hear this message. What that's meant is we've outrun our budget for this year. So we've already taken all the participants that we could take for 2017, but we're gearing up to open it back up in 2018. But if an individual wants to or has the means to pay their own way or to raise funds or do their own fundraiser, they absolutely can go through us. We have a number of certified physicians in our network that you can find through our website, or Dr. Gordon through our website, or you can just continue to follow us and the information that we put out if you're interested in getting this treatment yourself.
I'm only guessing that you're getting your funding mostly through donations. to
Yes,
cover
yeah.
all of these expenses?
Yeah, no, it's 100% through donations. Like I said, we've been blessed. In 2 years, probably raised almost $1 million, and we didn't have any fundraising background. We just said we want to solve this problem and we want to help others. So fundraising is it's kind of, I don't necessarily enjoy it, but I do enjoy the results that it produces. So we're looking at more efficient, more effective ways to do this. One of this is Dr. Gordon's come out with a number of products that we use with guys and girls that we've been treating. And we said, well, how can we just take the stuff that we're already paying for and can we make our own product and maybe a superior product? And we have a number of those coming online. A few have already come online this year, and those will directly support the foundation. So by 2018, we should have $500,000 in revenue coming in just through the businesses that we've set up to support this. My younger brother, who's an Apache pilot, aviation commander, he resigned his commission to help me found the Warrior Angels Foundation. And so we wrote a book basically, detailing what happened through the course of the last 3 years. What does it look like to have this injury? But more importantly, what it looks like to have the type of mindset to get out of it, and what happens when you can put a person back in the right environment, given the right things that their brain and their body needs, and what does that look like? And so that book will come out. It's called Tales from the Blast Factory. It'll be in all major bookstores come January of 2018, but we're using the proceeds of that also to support the foundation.
Oh, that's excellent. And when that comes out, shoot me a little reminder, and I'll definitely put it out to my crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do. I think the ebook is coming out this summer, and the physical book, they wanted the publisher that we went with wanted to wait till January of 2018, but we'll be sure and get you that information, Jeremy.
Awesome. And for any of the listeners out there, if you can't wait to see that book yourself, I imagine that Andrew has a mailing list you could get on to get notified as well.
Yeah, we do. Thanks for reminding. Tales from the blastfactory.com. That's tales from the blastfactory.com.
Excellent. We're going to get into the final 3 questions, but before we do, I just wanted to also remind the listeners out there that you also have a podcast called Warrior Soul Podcast. Can you tell us just a quick blurb about what goes on with that podcast?
Yes. Well, we've been blessed to have Jeremy on it previously, so you can tell the level of talent that we're having on the show. We wanted to bring the information. It's funny how things work out. I interact with top scientists, doctors, and people from that world now on a weekly basis. And my buddy Chris Albert had a company called Warrior Soul Apparel and Fitness, and he started a podcast. And I was talking to him about getting some marketing help with the Warrior Angels, and he recommended doing a podcast. So I was like, well, why don't I just come on on yours, and we can do it together. And so the whole intent of that is to bring the veteran audience information from the professionals and subject matter experts in their field that allow us to live our best lives. And so that is the whole point and the genesis of the Warrior Soul podcast.
That's awesome. And like he said, I was on it, so make sure you go and you check out the podcast. You could hear me getting interviewed. I'll be on the other side of the mic this time and telling you all about my growing up in military life and different things like that.
Yeah, it was a great show. We got a lot of great feedback. The audience really enjoyed Jeremy's podcast. So, yeah, check it out for sure.
Okay, we're going to get into the final 3 questions now. So we'll start this off with question number 1. Who would you like to hear on a future episode of the Veteran Resource Podcast?
I would like to hear Chuck Norris.
Nice.
I say that because, one, he's not a veteran, but his brothers were, I know, and we're a couple of degrees of separation from Chuck. But I haven't heard him on any podcast.
I thought he was a veteran himself.
Was he? I might be inaccurate on that, but if he's not, he definitely has strong ties to the veteran community, and that's somebody who is a strong advocate for it. But that being said, I haven't heard him on any podcasts, So that would be sweet if you get Chuck Norris.
I am going to find a way to connect with him through all of my degrees of separation and figure this out.
The internet will absolutely explode and maybe implode if we can bring Chuck Norris on a Veteran Resource.
Awesome. Okay, question number 2. What upcoming project has you fired up right now?
Great question. What the great thing that this journey has led me on is to be able to reevaluate life. And I think what's important in life, what's fundamental, is to lead a life of purpose and fulfillment. And for me, I found that again in being able to find a way to serve others. So I'm living the life that I'm fulfilled living. And so everything that we're doing with the foundation, what we're doing with the Warrior Soul, I can't wait to go to sleep because I can't wait to get up. So everything to me is exciting, and it's not a cop-out answer. We're just continuing to find new ways to solve complex problems in a new manner that will hopefully be for the benefit of all. And all that I find very exciting.
Awesome. Okay, final question here. This is the brain stretcher. If you woke up tomorrow and you found out that somebody made an anonymous donation of $10 million to your organization, what would you do with it?
I love that question. And again, it wouldn't change anything we're doing. We're trying to work a deal right now for half that amount. And I can tell you that what we've been able to do is help 200 people in the last 2 years. But not only just help them, now we're going to have about a half a dozen scientific articles come off of that work. So new science is coming out to support the anecdotal, if you will, evidence of what I'm saying. And with that, we're also looking at doing a couple of new research projects as well, looking at veteran suicide. So we're going to be we're totally changing the game on how this is played. That is going to be what we continue to do. And with that, the whole intent is to get this information into the hands of the individuals, but have the DOD and the VA adopt that. Well, the Trump campaign at the time, now the Trump administration came to us and they're interested in what we're doing. So we're now working with high-level leaders in the Pentagon and within the DOD to bring these protocols, get them implemented so everybody can now receive this benefit so we can stop this problem. So that money, if I got $10 million a day, I would continue on that track. And so we can change this problem by providing a superior alternative. And how do you do that? You do just that. You challenge the status quo by providing a superior alternative, and then you provide supporting evidence that cannot be dismissed. So I think, and my hope here for other leaders is that if they were to get $10 million right now, it wouldn't change what they were doing. It would only reinforce it, because that was when you can say, regardless of mission or regardless of money, we are dedicated to principles and ideals and values. And regardless of money, these are what we strive to uphold on a everyday basis. And so that's how we would handle it, Jeremy.
I love that answer, Andrew. That is excellent point. If you're already on the road to doing what you should be doing, even if you don't have the money to do it, then you know you're doing the right thing.
I agree. I think it's a byproduct. What the world calls success through financial means is a byproduct by contributing and performing to the best of your abilities. And if you can look yourself in the mirror and you can say, at the end of the day, you know what, today I contributed and I performed to the best of my abilities, then you don't need validation from anything else. And all the other worldly successes, they'll probably fall in line, or they'll start to get lined up when you can add 2 or 3 days in a row, make those days into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. Next thing you know, your life has radically changed, and the world has probably radically changed for it as well.
Awesome. Well, for the person out there with $10 million, or for anybody else who's listening who has, slightly less than $10 million and they want to contribute to Warrior Angels Foundation, one more time, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
WAF And like I said, we have a wealth of information there. All our social media links are there, and you can get to Warrior Soul podcast and all the other information that we have through Warrior Soul as well from waftbi.org.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on the podcast. I am absolutely positive that there's people out there that will hear this, they will get connected with you, and they will be helped.
Yeah, it's been an absolute honor. It's my honor to bring this information and to be on the show. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As always, make sure you go and check out the show notes. You can find those at veteranresourcepodcast.com/107. And you can get connected with Andrew there. You can follow the links to get over to the foundation and the podcast that we talked about. And if this episode spoke to you, then definitely go there and get connected with Andrew. Also, you still have time to get in on the rewards for July on the Patreon page, so go and check out what those rewards are. You can find them at patreon.com/Jeremy Paris. And also, Macy's is running a campaign with Got Your Six. It's happening right now through July 4th. If you get into a Macy's and you donate $3 to Got Your Six, you're going to get a coupon for 25% off a purchase at Macy's. And also, that money that you donate is going to go to Got Your Six, which then gets shared with its nonprofit partners. The Veteran Artist Program is one of those, and as you know, I'm the executive director of the Veteran Artist Program, so this campaign is really amazing that they're doing, and I can tell you firsthand that this does help in your local community. So get out to a Macy's. You're going to shop anyway. Might as well donate $3 and get the most out of it. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in episode 108.